afternoon. My name's Steve Hansen. I'm an Associate Provost and Dean for International Studies and Programs. I've been at Michigan State about almost 30 years now. I've been a faculty member of the Agriculture, Food and Resource Economics Department, and the last 3.5 years have been Dean for International Studies and Programs. And I'd like to maybe just say a few words about international strategy at MSU, and then we'll turn it over to our panels and open it up for discussion to you. MSU has a long history of international engagement, and those of you who are really new to MSU, I think you'll quickly realize we are perhaps one of the most internationally engaged universities in the country. And that dates back to 1956, when President John Hanna made a commitment, the first commitment by a public university to engage as an institution internationally. And he established what today we call the International Studies and Programs, International Programs and Studies platform at MSU, and named a Dean of International Programs at MSU. Now if you look around the country, you'll see a whole bunch of, pretty much every university has replicated something along those lines. But we were the first to do that. And we've had a series of presidents ever since then who have maintained a high level of commitment to international engagement, including President Simon, who has helped transform MSU from the first land-grant university to the first world-grant university. So we're striving really to be a key partner in global collaborations to address what we think are the world's most pressing problems. And so one of the results of having this long-standing international engagement is you'll see globalization, kind of comprehensive globalization throughout the university in all aspects of it. And really all colleges, all departments, all of our missions. And that's paid off over the years. So if you look at the external awards that come into MSU, roughly 500 million or so a year that come in. In any given year, it's around 15% are international awards. So international awards play a significant role in the external funding at MSU. And it's been growing at a very fast rate of about 9.5% a year. So substantially increasing every year. And I've just got a couple slides here. I'm not going to go through very many, but I put this first one up just to give you an idea of what our strategy is. In our international studies and programs, our job is to really help you create and support the international strategy at MSU. So really to support all of our faculty and all of our colleges as they try to engage internationally. And we try to do that very strategically. And it's based on what you see up here. The basic approach is pretty simple. We look for areas that we have strong thematic strengths in. So look for areas that we're really good thematically. And we try to adapt that thematic knowledge to the local context where we're working, trying to account for differences in language, history, culture, or physical characteristics of the regions we're working. So take the thematic knowledge, adapt it to the local context, and then importantly, we try to really create impact, scale that impact through innovations in partnerships and collaborations. So we try to bring those three things together, and that's what International Studies and Programs spends a lot of its time doing, is bringing those pieces together. And particularly on the regions piece and bringing the relationships and collaborations together. Now, as I sat through the last session, and a lot of what you heard there applies very nicely to the international work that we do. A lot of the international work is multidisciplinary. Not all of it, but a lot of it's multidisciplinary. There are a lot of partnerships and collaborations that have to be built, and a lot of work across colleges and across partners at other institutions. So another thing we do is we try to be very strategic. Faculty can work anywhere they want around the world, but institutionally we can't support all the work that faculty want to do. So we try to look at areas where we think we can bring together clusters of faculty and develop world-class strengths, and we try to support those. So we actually map this out. So we'll map out where our thematic strengths are. And when we survey the university and we look through contracts and grants, we see they kind of cluster around certain areas. So food and agriculture is one of those areas. Environment and energy is another area. Health and nutrition is a third area. And education is a fourth area. And food at MSU, because we've got such a long history in agriculture, food tends to be a dominant one. Interestingly, all 17 of our colleges have faculty working in all of these areas. So we have strengths in every college in all of these thematic areas. So we'll map out these thematic strengths, and we'll also map out where our regional strengths are. And we have particular strengths in Africa and parts of Asia, but pockets of strength in Latin America and Europe as well, in all parts of the world. But we'll map those strengths out, and we'll map out where we have our partnership strengths. And we'll also map out where our alumni are, where our students come from, and those things. And we'll lay all these maps together, and we use them to try to develop where our institutional strategies are going to be and where we're going to support those strategies. So that helps guide a number of initiatives that you'll hear about at MSU. One of the ones we just launched this last year is called the Alliance for African Partnerships, and that in the initial phase funded 15 collaborative research projects that included clusters of MSU faculty working with faculty from African partner institutions. We have similar efforts going on in what we call the Asia Hub and a variety of other initiatives that happen at MSU. So International Studies and Programs is really trying to support all those activities. So let me stop there, and we can pick up on those during the discussion if we want. But I want to turn to our panel now, and we've got experts here that bring a variety of different perspectives. Rhonda Montgomery is from the Department of Biochemistry and Microbiology. Dave Weatherspoon from the Department of Agriculture, Food, and Resource Economics, and Kareem Meridia from the Department of Entomology. And I'm going to let them open up here. I'm going to just pose a quick question to them. Maybe they can take 2 or 3 minutes and answer the question, and then we're going to open it up for your questions. So I'll turn it to you. What I'd like for you to do, there's a lot of motives for engaging in international work by faculty, and there's a lot of advice that's given to faculty on when and if they should engage internationally. So if you could each talk for just a few minutes on why you got engaged internationally and what you think some of the real keys to success are. Whoever wants to start.
Never been shy to take a mic. So I've been engaged in international research on 2 different fronts. One as an individual primary investigator, and one as part of unit level initiatives with my departments and college. And the invitation to become involved with the unit level was that there were several of professors here at Michigan State who had interactions with a group of professors at a university in Germany. And we were interacting basically around disciplinary strengths, plant biochemistry, but several of us decided that this was an opportunity to formally engage graduate students and undergraduates as well. And so in that case, it became a university to university level engagement where we have a formal partnership or exchange program now with the Heinrich Heine University in Dusseldorf. And so it's been really beneficial in terms of interacting between the faculty at those 2 institutions. But we've also integrated researchers at younger researchers, I would say, where we now have graduate students who we exchange between those 2 programs, as well as undergraduates. So for me, that opportunity became a way for me to do what's really critical for my research career, is to integrate my interest across mentoring, research, and teaching. And so this opportunity to engage with other researchers at the other institution was very beneficial, but also to bring students into that process. In addition to the international aspect, it's been really helpful for solidifying the relationships of the faculty members here. So there are 12 to 15 of us who are involved in this program, and we more closely interact here, even as we engage across the borders with our colleagues in Germany. In terms of my own personal individual engagements, part of it was strategic. So when I came here, we all know that when we start as assistant professors, we hope that we'll be successful and get to full. And part of that is international recognition. And what does that actually mean? It means that people in other places read your papers and acknowledge it, but it also, for me, meant building personal relationships with these individuals so that they weren't just speaking about the research, but they could speak about me as a researcher. And so I started very early asking, how can I interact with individuals, not just here at MSU or in the US, but in other places. And so I looked for strengths in the areas that I work. One of those, I work with cyanobacteria, blue-green algae, and there's been long-standing recognition and advancement in that area in India. and in a couple of other countries. And I asked my program officer at the NSF if we could have a scientific diplomacy trip to India. So part of this started by us taking a group of researchers who were funded by my funding agency and doing a symposium at a university in India. But once there, we asked, how can we start to build relationships that will move towards collaboration? And for me, the secrets have always been to have a sincere scientific and scholarly interest in a topic that is shared with someone in another country. Because if it's just driven by needing to have a connection with someone internationally, it'll be short term. But if there's a sincere scientific and scholarly connection, it allows you to really stick through it when the barriers of working across different countries, different kinds of funding decisions arise. And so for me, it's always been driven by that. Part of it being a strategic, that you have to build this international reputation, but how do you do it in a way that's fulfilling to you, that is bilateral, where both partners are benefiting, and that hopefully there's an opportunity to bring in students at some level.
So my name is Karim Maridi. I'm with the College of Agriculture. I'm originally from India, and I was born in a small village at home. There were no clinics in those days, and my parents were farmers, small-scale farmers, both my mother and father. And when I was growing up, the big challenge in India was food security, and so my parents decided to send me in agriculture. That's what I did. I came to US then and did my master's and PhD, and my first job was in Mexico with an international center. I worked with Norman Borlaug, the father of Green Revolution. I worked there. He was retired, but he was there, and he really inspired me. And one of the things he did was training, education, research, capacity building, sharing of knowledge, and that's what I really have continued. I came to Michigan State University. Actually, the reason I came to Michigan State was my wife wanted to get a PhD, and she was in Steve's department, and we came here, and we thought maybe we would stay here for 3-4 years and leave, but we never left. So I've really continued my work, and I didn't change my track. I wanted to work with developing countries, and I think Michigan State is a great place here. We are a mecca of international agriculture and development here. And I think the institutional support that we have, I hope all of you who are new faculty will take that. I was at University of Arkansas. I've been to many universities, but I think Michigan State is a very unique place. There are a lot of resources available. There are lots of projects going on. That really you could become part of it, even if you are not in that field. You can, there are areas we are working here, food security. You can pretty much connect a lot of departments and colleges on a theme like that. So currently I'm involved in a project which is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and that's on biotechnology. And the grant is $12.3 million. We are in the second phase of the grant. So sometimes people say, I want to get a big grant. Actually, it took 15 years for us to land that grant. I had to start with small place. We did a lot of small activities that really got us build the network that Narendra was just talking about. And when the Gates Foundation saw that we have built a good network, we have good reputation, we have good programs, they invited us to submit a concept note for a planning grant. And initially, they didn't give us $12 million. They gave us $1 million to develop a plan. And we used that $1 million to build a network, did the assessments. And then one day we got an email that we can submit a 5-year plan. They give us a $10 million for 5 years. And then after 4 years, they reviewed the program, and they recommended that the grant be extended for another 5 years. So we are in the year 8 of the 10-year grant right now. So altogether we have received almost $25 million. So my advice to young faculty is become part of these networks. On campus, I think we have got lots of programs here on campus. We have Area Studies Center. Dean Henson mentioned about the Alliance for African Partnership. It's a great platform. If you can get connected with the faculties there. Recently they awarded, I think, 14 or 15 small grants. Asian Studies Center is here, Latin American Studies Centers are there. Through that, you can get connected. The other thing is, as you're looking at donors, each donor has its own approach. I am managing currently grants from USAID, Gates Foundation, and USDA. All of them have a unique culture. Gates Foundation is focusing mainly on smallholder farmers in Africa and South Asia. They don't work in Latin America. They don't work in Middle East. They don't work in former Soviet Union. They have a specific focus. USAID is working on Feed the Future countries, which are about 17 or 18 countries, while USDA has their own focus. So each foundation or organization, donor, has their own culture, their own geographic focus. But one of the things that I'm seeing increasingly donors are focusing is not only just doing research, but creating impacts. They want to see the impacts on the lives of the people. And they want to see that we build enough capacity on the ground so when the funding is over, that local institutions could continue to work. I think the main message is building that network, be part of different programs, attending different conferences and meetings. I think MSU offers a lot of support. There is what they call strategic partnership grants. If you want to build a collaboration with a university or a research institution in Asia or Africa or anywhere, you can go to ISP. They have what they call strategic partnership grant, which would take 3 or 4 MSU faculties. You can go and visit them, or you can invite faculties, your potential collaborators from other countries, to MSU and develop a program. One other thing that in the previous panel they were talking about, not to sometime you want to go for a big grant, but maybe you could go with a network and be a sub-awardee initially, maybe get a small grant. So really I think just think out of the box and open up your network. Thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm Dave Weatherspoon. I'm a professor in agriculture, food, and resource economics. My story sounds a lot like Karim's, at least the beginning. I'm from a small village, but in Michigan. And from a farming community, grew up on a small farm, and always had a passion for food access and the poor. And so that led me to come to Michigan State, and I got my first experiences as an undergrad here. At that time, it wasn't that common to have study abroad and those types of things, but this is a great place to get your first experience working abroad, and I took advantage of that. Fast forward, my first job was at another institution where there wasn't a lot of international activity, so I was really pushing the envelope at that institution. When you come to MSU, and some of the institutions you're coming from may be the same way, and when you come to Michigan State, it's a little different. There's a lot of opportunity. And you actually have to sit back and be a little bit more focused and think, what do you want to accomplish, and does it work along with what you're trying to, where you're trying to go, and where you are in your tenure clock, or different aspects of your career. So you need to think about that clearly, and as well as the region, because you can expand to do the same thing in different parts of the world, or you can get more entrenched in a few countries, or one country in particular. But those experiences are out there in every field. I've collaborated with so many different people on campus, and former students or former faculty members from Michigan State. You can't go to a country without running into someone that is from this institution, and they're always willing to help you. It's a phenomenal network, okay? And so what both of them have just said about, getting connected, those connections are real, and they will help you accomplish your objectives in each country. Make sure that you think long-term in those countries. A number of people will recycle in the countries you're working in. They may be working on one project today, but if they're local, you're probably going to see them in another project the next time you come out. So make sure that you stay in touch and have a sincere connection, because you will see them again. I don't want to repeat anything that has been said. I want to make sure that we answer your questions and give you good advice. But I would just say that, once again, networking is key. Be focused, and think about, are you also addressing some of the really tough problems that we're facing out there, not just what you can accomplish in your lab, or assimilate on your computer, but are we also being a true land grant and addressing those tough problems that plague our society?
Thank you. A lot of wisdom and experience. So let's open it up now to your questions.
Hi. Let's say I have a collaborator right now in another country. I actually have one in Australia and one in Germany, and I think there's opportunity to submit a grant together. How do I go about finding an opportunity to do this?
Part of it depends on the topical area. And so I think that where you are not clear, if, for example, if you have a granting agency that you generally apply to in terms of your topical area, talking to your program officer is a good place to start because they often.
So no, I was just in Germany for 7 years, so I'm coming in totally fresh back to the U.S. I have no associations with any program officers in the United States.
Even in that sense, if your research is likely to be funded by a particular, your research area is likely to be funded by a particular funding agency in the U.S., often there are sister agencies in other countries. So for example, in the U.S., a lot of my work is funded by the National Science Foundation, and in Germany, there's a sister German equivalent of that. And so often each of us, my collaborator and I, will talk to our program officers in those countries and ask, very frequently there are joint funding opportunities that you can apply for, that you may be better positioned to do that as opposed to each of you applying individually in your own country. So that's why I mentioned it, is that there are often agency agreements where they can work together. There's a similar one, some of my collaborators in India, one of our funding agencies and an Indian funding agency put money in trust that researchers that would apply for those jointly could apply for a particular pot of money that others were not having access to. So I mention that just because often the percent of success is greater for these earmarked opportunities to get people working together.
Yes, for example, the Feed the Future countries for USA, they collaborate with a bunch of other funding agencies from around the world. So, also I've been funded from the German Development Agency, GTZ. So just because you're at MSU doesn't mean you can't apply for something that's in Germany as well. But if you're in a country that donors are collaborating, look for those opportunities like you just mentioned.
So I think you are here and your collaborators are in Germany and Australia, but if the area that you want to do research focuses on, say, Africa, 3 of you can come together and develop a proposal that you could submit it to the Gates Foundation. My suggestion is initially is to really develop some kind of a concept, 2 or 3 page, share with a few donors. Sometime you may not get money, but you may get some good advice, and there's a saying that if you go to people for advice, sometimes you get good advice and also you get money, So, so I would suggest that don't be afraid that we are working on a program that's funded by a government in India and has collaborators from all over. So.
I would just say before it was Steve's office, I went, when I was not aware of where to go, I went and talked to people in ISP and said, I have this idea I want to work on, and I have potential collaborators in these countries. And they were very helpful in helping me to identify who to talk to and who my collaborators may go to. And I suggest that, I'm sure you're doing the same thing now that it's your office, Steve, but.
Yes. It's your office, by the way. There's a group in ISP called the Office of International Research Collaboration, OIRC. Actually, on the last, I thought they were on the last slide here. Yeah, lost them, but anyway, Office of International Research Collaboration. They send out weekly notices on funding opportunities, and if you have an idea, if you're looking to put together collaborations, if you reach out to them, they have the databases of everybody working in the university in these areas, who's working in these countries, who are existing collaborators are, the existing relationships we have with funding agencies, on and on and on. They can help you package up your idea. They do provide some support in grant writing, but that tends to be the larger multi-college grants that they'll work on themselves. But they can point you to other resources around campus that can work on basically any type of funding.
Just mention one other thing. One of the other areas or approaches that I've used is to write a concept note to someone I thought would be receptive in one of the funding agencies, and then they may ask you to come back and write a white paper for them, which ends up being the majority of the grant that they offer. So that's been a very effective approach in cutting edge or things that they never would have funded before, getting them to think about it, buy into it, and then fund it.
Any other questions?
So I'm a huge fan that research is a contact sport. How often is it important to go meet with collaborators? Can you give some advice on, changing students back and forth, things like that? How do you really make a good, coherent team internationally?
Well, the thing that's worked for us in terms of the program where we have student exchange is that every second year we have a symposium where all of the faculty and students that are a part of that come together. And I think you're right that it's those kinds of opportunities where there is opportunity to have face-to-face contact and interaction that keeps the networks cultivated. And so that's been a part of what we've done, is to build that into the process.
What we have done in our projects is we have annual meeting, face-to-face meeting, but then we have monthly Skype calls or whatever way we can communicate. And then for smaller groups, we even have weekly, Skype, because Skype is great, it doesn't cost you, and sometimes it's amazing how much you can do. Yeah.
We've got another question back here.
Hi. So I'm a medical graduate of Aga Khan University, which got campuses in Pakistan and East Africa. And I grew up in Dubai, and I did my PhD in Sweden. So I'm fresh to US and MSU. I just wanted to ask, do you have like a directory of some sort where, along with the people who are involved with global research, there are overlaps with kind of themes? Because I work in public health and heart disease and stroke. So could I find places of overlap?
I'd say it's a mix of these opportunities that we've been talking about there. You can slice it thematically at MSU, and there you would go to a place like the Office of International Research Collaboration, and they would be able to look at people at MSU anyway who are working in the areas you're interested in and connect you to them. There's also, as the panelists mentioned, a thematic organization, a regional organization as well. So we have Asian Studies Center, we have African Studies Center, Canadian Studies Center, and so on, that will have faculty coming together who have regional interests with a bunch of different thematic emphases. So there's ways to find it, to network across however you're interested in slicing.
I've heard most of what's being discussed over here about food and food security. So I was just thinking if there's a particular health focus and a health group as well, which kind of works in public health and global health, and if they have some kind of overlap with food security, because I'm guessing, both of them are quite interrelated.
There's a lot of health. Dave's involved with this, and Kareem to some extent too. All three of the panelists are. There is, I will mention, there's an Institute of International Health. The name just changed. I don't have the new name yet, but Institute of International Health that looks at a lot of those issues you're talking about. But it's kind of what health is woven into all of these areas.
Yeah, that's where it's important to start looking at the different teams that are out there. Mine is, what I work on is economics, nutrition, and health. There's implications of malnutrition for long-term health, and also what the gross domestic product is for the country. If you have stunting at a really high rate in a country, the actual income is affected for the whole nation long term. So we're recognizing those relationships and trying to figure out, you know, is it something that can be addressed, you know, 0 to 2 years old for children in my work. So yeah, health is very important. Having an inexpensive way of measuring or indicating health is one of the obstacles, right? So I'm not sure what exactly the area that you work on, but that's some of the things that we're thinking a lot about.
So it sounds like the Office of International Research is a good place to start, and they might be able to help route your other questions. So I think that, all right, we have one more question here, and then maybe Steve will have you start to wrap it up, so we stay respectful of everyone's time. It's really not 5, but it is a few minutes after 4.
I'll try to reduce the size of this question, but I was very interested. I'm a huge supporter of multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary research, and also in the global context, but I'm wondering if you have any general advice on the challenges that one might face in coordinating that in an international context. Have you run into anything that you think would be important to pass on to other people in terms of not only interdisciplinary topics and the coordination of that, but working in a global context?
The one thing that I would say, which is a complete overgeneralization, but is to be realistic about timeframes of progress and outcomes. And I think that's because we work in these environments where metrics are really important and being able to show how you've made progress, but particularly both interdisciplinary and international research has what I call an incubation time. And you have to build that into your expectation in terms of being able to work across these different platforms and learning languages, common languages, both interdisciplinary, intercultural, whatever may come. So I think really building into some patience and cultivation time is important so that you don't give up before the outcomes start to come forward.
I'm going to say something that you probably won't believe, but it may not be the best option for you to be the PI. Sometimes the reporting mechanism of different organizations are so onerous that that's all you end up doing, and you don't get the opportunity to do the research. And so if you're being pushed forward to be a PI, and others are available to do it, ask the question why. And you know, depending on where you are in your career, it can be, you know, difficult, right? So I would say be careful, and that's what I'm saying. You know, there's networks out here. Go ahead and join, see how things work here, and particularly if this is your first international experience in working on a project, it's okay to work with a team and not have to lead it.
So my experience is a little bit different. I think with the international, one of the things that most countries and institutions require is they want to have an MOU, and Dean Hansen is aware, probably there are thousands of MOUs. Many institutions will not write a collaborative proposal with you without an MOU, signed an MOU. MOU is a piece of paper signed saying that we would, it really doesn't commit anything. And then the second part that's taken a long time for us is setting up these agreements. Because once you have many partners in many institutions, you've got to set up an agreement with each one of them, how the money will be handled, how the money will be shared, and what Dave said, how the reporting will be done. Now, with USAID and other federal government projects, I agree with Dave that you don't want to be PI. The rigorous requirements of financial reporting, but I think with Gates Foundation, it's good to be PI. I'm a PI for 10 years. You get to meet with Bill Gates, you know, and you get invited to Seattle and see, and it just helped me build my network more, you know, go more deeper. So it really varies from a donor to donor. So if you get a chance to get a Gates Foundation, you know, apply for a grant, try to be a PI, you know. It's fun, it's very refreshing to work with. Their reporting requirements are different. Their proposals are like a form. You don't have to write a 50-page proposal like you write to NIH or other, and it just expands your network.
And so I think that's one of the great things about Michigan State University is there are multiple paths to engage internationally. And depending where you're at in your career and what your area of expertise is, there's all these networks that we're talking about. Anybody who wants to can find a network, bring your particular skill, and find a niche, and have the opportunity to build your experience set. Some people who come with, came through graduate school and they've worked in international projects and want to keep, they're just going to keep on going. Others who don't have that experience, so there's all these opportunities to just plug your skill set in and have somebody else bear a lot of those transactions costs if you're engaging in institutions. So I think we stop there. I'm sure the panelists will hang around for a few minutes if you have more questions, but let's thank the panelists for